Welcome to Horticulture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Please excuse any choking sound you hear. I just inhaled a chocolate bar. It was delicious, and I'm supporting my local 4-H, so, you know.
I thought you were choking someone out.
Giving myself chocolate-based pneumonia. It's like
I mean, it's fine. How else do you
never
want to
seen
go
the
in
fluid
life?
be 100% melted chocolate before.
No.
Case.
I actually was
The
born in
exodus-
the Willy Wonka factory. I'm not sure if any of you knew that about
Oh.
me,
It's
but
really
I
the
am
fast
part
way
Oompa
to-
Loompa.
It's
Alexis,
the fast way
you're
to
turning
get chocolate
Alexis.
in this bloodstream is to aspirate it right into the lungs.
Yes.
Direct
in its dry
injection.
form. Yeah.
You
Would not
been,
recommend.
Y'all got any hot tips on any music or TV shows you've been watching lately?
I don't even know.
I'm
It's
always fascinated by the turn into fall, and it like changes up the vibe a little bit, you know, and you're like searching
Yes.
for something a little different, maybe.
Mhm.
You know,
I don't know.
hot boy summer is over.
TV's
Hot boy
so
fall has begun.
decentralized now. I mean, I feel like in the past with antenna, you know, everybody was watching the same thing or cable, but what's
I
everybody
think
watching
everybody
now?
still is.
Are
We
we?
just started watching The Bear, so
Oh, the bear's solid.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I haven't watched it, but it's on the list.
So,
Heard,
for some-
Chef.
yeah, heard. I don't know why,
Heard.
but Tyler's into it, and I can't figure out that's not his vibe. But
Everybody likes it. That watches
he's here
it,
for
yeah.
it, and I
Maybe
asked
he
him
just
why, and
respects
he
that guy's
goes,
biceps.
I don't know. It's like really intense.
Yeah,
It's
like
just,
maybe he
does
has
it
like
make you
some kind
feel
of
things?
undiagnosed anxiety disorder, like me, where it's just like, oh, cool, it's TV happening at the speed of my brain.
I think there's just a lot of Chicago Bear references in it, so it like draws him in.
I see. Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's
it's better that than watching the Chicago Bears play actual football this year.
Well, he
Am I
tries
right?
doing that.
Where's the
He
lie?
turns it off pretty quickly.
No, see.
This is the second episode we brought football in the beginning, and none of us are big football people, so that's pretty weird.
Speak for yourself.
I
I'm
mean-
the biggest football person.
Physically and mentally.
Yeah.
I'm kind of shaped like a football.
Yeah.
You're not shaped like the soccer ball chicken that Emily has.
Man,
Shout out Emily.
last week's episode was so awesome with Emily.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Look forward to that series.
If you
I do.
haven't listened to that episode, you should do that now. Just pause.
Otherwise,
go back.
this one won't make any sense.
It will
Yeah.
make complete sense because we're talking about
Oh.
garlic today. I should introduce the
Well,
episode.
nobody
but-
did anyone even say a single thing that, you said you were watching The Bear, and then now
Yeah.
we're ready to
Mhm.
move on. No one else
No,
was
they
able
don't.
to
No,
share.
nobody else
No.
gets to share.
I
so.
have
Vocals
Spooky
for the
TV
background.
season,
Tell me
people.
about your life, Brett. What brings
Brett,
you joy?
you are watching something on PBS that's amazing. I have a
Bring-
feeling.
Tell me
Well,
what brings you joy.
now that you say it like that, I don't want to share anymore.
Oh my god.
I'm putting
Well,
this back in my
I've
pocket.
been like settling in, assuming that the kind of tandem strike with the writers and actors going on was going to continue. So I've been deep diving the back catalog and watching Entourage, which I never saw.
Oh,
Oh.
man, Turtle.
Yeah.
I've not
Speaking
seen
of
that
Turtle,
either.
I don't think we've been speaking of Turtle, but I'm always thinking about him.
Not unrecorded.
Turtle, man, Ari Gold,
Oh,
what
God,
an
so
incredible
funny.
character!
I have not watched that
Kills me.
series.
Haven't either.
not
Yeah.
watched- There's my
Andy and I
back
watch it together.
catalog is like huge, and it's depressing now. I'm to the point where I add something to my watch queue, and it's so long that if I lived
Mhm.
another 189 years, I still would not be able to watch
Well,
it.
you
all,
probably
so.
will because
Yeah,
you
look-
are a vampire.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
We just keep
You
have
serving up
unlimited
teasers
time.
for garlic, and
We do.
We're
Yeah,
not
you're
gonna-
welcome.
But
And
I'm not
it's-
ready for it yet.
And it's spooky season coming up, so my TV is like classic 80s and 90s cartoons. I love
Mhm.
animation. Like
Mhm.
we're talking like Peanuts, like go out in a pumpkin patch, wait on a dream that's not going to come.
Great
I'm
Pumpkin.
gonna
Yeah,
enjoy
yeah.
He turns
that.
on
yeah.
after Reed goes to bed.
Yes. But I love it's spooky TV season. Yeah.
Did you
all the
know?
spooky
Speaking
stuff.
of spooky season, you're familiar with the song Monster Mash?
Yes.
Yes.
Within the like world's strongest man and bodybuilder culture,
hmm
this
Of
mixture.
which we are all familiar.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you all, but for any listeners who want to,
Esoteric to some.
who aren't
I'm in my
exposed-
bulking season.
Yeah, Alexis knows all about what I'm about to say.
Carb load.
There's this thing. I think it's mostly like ground beef and rice, and
Mhm.
they refer to it as Monster Mash
Ground
because
beans.
they just eat
and
like so much of
rice.
it to get big, you know?
Yeah.
I do that with
Yeah.
ice cream.
Yeah.
And it's dry rice and raw ground beef.
Ooh,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
They make it
Yeah,
into little
Monster
balls.
Crunchy.
They throw at each
Monster
other.
mash. Wow. This took a turn. I mean, that's not out of the ordinary, but this took a turn.
It is a
Yeah, it went from
it is a
It's
spooky
usually
bathroom
to-
smash.
it's usually brown
Yeah.
rice, unfortunately, as well, which is like
You're not a brown rice person?
I'm not a
I
brown
love
rice.
brown rice,
No,
yeah.
I'll eat jasmine rice. That's what I pick over brown rice.
Wow, elite.
Wow,
yeah,
yeah.
no, leet.
The, the rice that was originally bred for Thai royalty. It's
You're
only
welcome.
what Alexis eats.
Obviously.
I guess I should
No
have seen
one
that
is
coming.
Go off, Queen. Don't let this guy make you feel bad.
No plain
No,
old white
I
rice for
can't
this
do
gal.
the brown rice thing. It just I can't. I don't like it.
Oh, we're gonna get into some other food preference stuff here in a little bit.
Yeah. So Brett,
I
what
have-
are you watching?
Oh, I haven't been watching really much of anything. Honestly, I've been
You were
watching
looking for ideas?
Guys eating Monster Mash.
yeah, guy
watching
eats
Over
monster
and
mash.
over.
It's mostly shorts though,
10
so it doesn't last
hours.
very long.
Yeah.
It's reels and
3.2
shorts.
minutes.
I'm also been watching Wheel of Time. I don't know if you were looking for
Oh my
recommendations.
Yeah.
gosh!
Is the new
I've
season out yet
Rosamund
for that?
Rosamund Pike.
Oh yeah.
Your heart.
Intense.
Yeah.
Dreamboat.
Oh,
Yep.
She
God,
is
she's
amazing.
scared me ever since Gone Girl. You ever
Yes,
see that?
I love to be afraid.
I like fear. It's a spooky season after all.
Our friend Chelsea referred to Annie, my wife, as my hot goth wife, and
Mm.
Nice.
she is goth. It's a little. There's some fear.
She's
you
got
know?
some spook in her. Yeah.
Definitely.
I love it.
Definitely.
That's what I love
hates
about her.
Yeah, she's a spooky season fan.
Spooky read, spooky season.
I've been called back to some of the music that I listened to when I was
Yeah,
a
back
little
to
younger. And Sesame
punk?
Street? No,
Oh.
no, it's
Emo?
like-
Are we on?
like I would
You
say
say Elmo or
country,
emo?
like older country, like Townes Van Zandt.
Oh
and
yeah, that's
Don
good
Williams.
Stuff. Don
and,
Williams is eternal. Yeah,
Oh
good,
my
good
gosh.
stuff. His
some
voice.
Of, some of his albums, I'm like,
His
when did
voice.
this come out? Because it sounds like it could have come out in
Mhm.
like 2010.
That is one of my wife's ultimate favorites. She's a music like old West country and Western snob, and Don Williams is at the very pinnacle of that genre for her. Yeah, loves Don Williams. Yeah.
Jen's also an amazing advocate for local music scene. So shout out to her. You know,
Yeah,
Whoop.
she does
I
all the
immediately
support.
went.
don't
I don't
know.
know why, because I don't really consider this like old country, obviously. But I immediately, when he said that, I was like way down south on the Chattahoochee.
oh yeah, Alan
Well,
Jackson.
Alan Jackson, sure.
I
used to
immediately
listen
just
to that.
imagined you singing that, like like out in the garden.
Yeah,
I mean, you could do some weeding to that. I could see that. The cadence is, peppy enough. So, yeah. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't know, musical taste. I'm very, and it's weird, and I do this once a year, and I never know when it's going to hit me. But Vivaldi Four Seasons. I'm not a highbrow
Ooh.
music
Yeah.
listener. I am not, but I crank that up as soon as leaves look like they're changing here in Central Kentucky, in much of Kentucky, not because of the weather per se, even though we're getting close to October. It's more so it's very dry here, but when the leaves start to get crunchy on the trails that I walk, I want to hear some classical, particularly starting with Vivaldi Four Seasons. So
I think the interest. You talk about like the highbrowness of it, and we will get to a horticulture topic, but Four Seasons is a horticulture topic, right?
It is. It
Yeah.
is. Covers all four.
I think just that like the highbrow conception of both that and jazz really means that a lot of people who might try it out sometime don't. And for me, it's like it's just the emotional experience of listening to it, the way that it moves, and like the timelessness of those particular pieces, the Four Seasons,
Yeah.
and others too. It's just like I don't know. It's we don't have to turn everything into this brain exercise where it's like
Right.
really crazy. It can be this much more human, basic.
I think that kind of type of
Experience.
music is much more approachable because it invokes a feeling. And if you ask children, it's amazing. And Jennifer's done activities with this, and she's got the research to back it and all this. But one of the activities she's done in the past, she'll play like classical music and ask children, what feeling that gives them. And almost invariably, they tune into the feeling that the composer wanted to convey. I mean, just like a music aficionado would have conveyed the feelings that are in the songs, a 4 and 5-year-old will do the same in their own words, and it's amazing.
That's
and
awesome.
so that makes music particularly approachable to me. But yeah, was a great question, Brett, because in the seasons my musical tastes do change. I don't know. I'd get reflective in the fall and winter. getting ready for the long days of winter. So maybe my musical taste get a little darker.
Well, with
I don't
those kind
know.
of classical pieces, right? Like one of the roadblocks, I think a lot of people do enjoy classical music, but they might not know the name of what they like, right? Like so many things are familiar to people,
I think that's
but they
me.
lack that kind of like they might not know, this was this composer, this was this.
Yeah.
They just heard it, dozens of times over the years.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
And
me.
even
I'm
if
uncultured.
you're like, if you want, because we refer to, in the United States, we refer to classical as encompassing all of these different movements. When in reality, classical period is one of a variety of in the Western musical canon. And there's such variability within that like,
Mhm.
the idea of like Bach and Mozart, they're and
Right.
Vivaldi, they're like such radically different feels and vibes. It's
Mhm.
almost like the difference between, I don't know what, Hank Williams Jr. and Luke Bryan. Like they're just different
Chris
things.
Gaines.
Yeah, Chris Gaines. Oh man, I love the life of Chris Gaines for what it's worth. Shout out Garth. But yeah, I think it's like sampling the things that you like and then realizing, oh, these, like, I kind of like stuff from this period that's a little more chill and low key and formulaic, or something that's a little more expressive and wild and crazy. Can be, yeah, I think we do a lot of disservice to musical education, just like in the enjoyment of music, and art, and also sometimes of horticulture, you know,
Right.
It takes all
Planting
kinds of
seeds and watching
kinds.
them grow.
planting seeds,
Yeah.
watching them grow, tear in your eye, perhaps.
You know what
Yes.
doesn't change throughout the seasons? My love of garlic.
Indeed.
You love
Bringing
it
it
all the
back
time.
around.
Mm.
Bringing it back around.
Well, it is spooky season, as you said
I
earlier. Ray,
It is spooky.
confirmed vampire.
Mhm.
confirmed.
Future
Yeah.
show. That's a great idea. Horticulture superstitions
Mm.
needs to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I measure garlic like I measure vanilla. It's with my heart. I never, like, with the recipe says 2, automatically 4 or more.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh,
automatically.
get huge.
I don't
I
play
want it
No,
to
around.
is that
be
the
sharp.
Amarice roots? That's Lexus's.
Emerici.
It's
That's Alexis.
Amadese. It's Amadese.
Alexis's maiden name.
Yes. I guess so. I don't know. It was always in the house. I don't know if I've ever not had garlic in the house in my entire
Mm.
life. Entire life. Wow.
So do we
Guess
want to
what I
start
like
talking about eating it, or do we want to start talking about growing it?
Let's grow some first.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's
Well, it's
your
too, it's,
what's your feel?
you have to plant garlic like with everything else, right, Ray? In the
You
Pay
spring?
attention.
You do.
No.
Not really. If you try to do that,
do
you're not going to be.
really.
This is the
No,
time of year
Brett, you
we
think you're
need.
dumb.
No, I have done that before though. I've planted garlic out of season and went against, and Jamie Docker and I, another horticulture agent in Central Kentucky, and he has a video. I think it's still up on YouTube where he will say, "Do not do this, but you can try it. You're probably not going to like the results."
Ooh.
But if you plant garlic in the spring, that's out of season, months too late. Sometimes you can get some results. They're not going to be great, but you would be much better off here in Kentucky planting garlic last part of September, first part of October,
Oh.
October into November for most varieties. That's a much better time because of the nature of garlic and the way that it grows. It's a fall planted crop and usually harvested, sometime in the summer the following year.
What a timely
So it's a
discussion.
little bit different. What's
Are
that?
we
What a timely
hardneck
discussion.
people? What are
Yes,
we planting?
indeed.
Are we hardneck or softneck? Where's the crew at?
Oh, Lord.
Probably for me, soft neck, because goodness, it keeps 6 to 8 months, and hard neck keeps 3 to 5 months.
Hmm.
If I'm storing my garlic, soft neck all the way.
I like
Hard
hardneck.
neck is usually more hardy, right? Though, like it's
Going north, yes.
Mhm,
In
yeah.
northern
It's
climates,
the
they don't really
it's
have much of an
sharper,
option.
too.
And here in Kentucky, we're in a transition zone. So I've heard it recommended for here in parts of Kentucky, you will have a more consistent harvest if you focus all your efforts on hard neck. But soft neck does pretty well most
if you've got a
winters here in
protected
Kentucky.
area or something. You can do soft neck really
and
easily.
soft neck I've grown just a lot and never had any issues as long as it's well drained and I've well mulched. I haven't ever had any issues with soft neck, but I know in theory that I could have.
Are there functional differences between soft neck and hard neck? Why do I even care about the difference between these? I know you nerds have these distinctions, but is there something for us cool kids out here with practical considerations? Soft neck, hard
Planting,
neck.
if you're on a commercial scale, there's a big difference in like yield and how many pounds to order and how many row feet you get out of, because the bulb configuration is different with hard neck and soft neck. So there's some considerations there on a larger scale. But as far as eating, yeah, there's different, types of garlic that have different eating qualities, but
Yeah, I
I don't
always
know.
relate hard neck to like more like intense varieties. I don't necessarily
Mhm.
think that's like true for
Across the
sure, but there
board,
just
but
Yeah,
seems
I
to
don't
be
know.
more hard neck varieties
I've
that are
I've
a
had
more
that
intense
association.
flavor.
Yeah,
And
that it's
then
like kind of
With hard
smaller,
neck.
more flavorful,
yeah,
less bulbs, but you don't need as much, and it goes way harder.
right, right.
Yeah,
And
I'm
like
noticing the store, most varieties I get out of the store are almost always soft neck, and that may be a function of where it's grown in the country more so than
Mhm.
anything else.
fun fact,
Do they all have scapes?
I
No,
believe only hard necks.
hard
only hard
scale,
That,
hard
scapes.
that
neck
was
is
always
the only one with
my
scapes.
main
Yeah,
distinction was
yeah.
the scapage.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever made a garlic scape pesto?
Me.
Years ago,
Delicious.
Oh
yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Delicious.
Awesome
Yeah.
stuff.
I think that's what I love also about hard neck is that it's like I feel like I'm getting double, like the
Yeah,
product because
yeah.
I'm harvesting the scape and they're great in floral design. They have great movement.
So the scape is what is what the
The
scape? What is
flower
the scape?
stalk.
Yeah,
Mhm.
flower stock coming up
And that's going
now.
to come out in like late spring, early summer before.
Yeah, June, May. Am I
What's
right?
that
Here,
first? What
May.
scapes?
Scapes are usually around May
Yeah,
sometime.
the top growth converts around summer solstice, which next year is like June 20th. So
Okay, or
that's
June.
when you start to get bulb growth at summer solstice. So you already have your finishing your top growth, which is around May, June.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so
And you want to
if you have any ornamental allium in your yard, that's what allium, the family that garlic and onions are in is allium. And so those flower spikes on those things are obviously meant to look really nice. The ones on top
Mm-hmm.
of this, I think Alexis was going to say you want to harvest them.
hmm You want to do you want to
Like
harvest the
when?
scapes once they kind of start to finish their curl, right? So
They
they
circle,
curl
yeah.
up into
Yeah.
a circle and you want to harvest them. The reason why is because you don't want it to actually fully bloom. You want to have the plant put that energy down into that bulb so that you get
Right.
a good bulb there.
Harvesting it means literally just cutting it off
hmm
Hmm.
where it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's back up and talk about the approachability of garlic for home gardeners. Would you
Mhm.
guys kind of all agree that garlic is one of those crops? It's a bit different, fall planted
hmm
here in Kentucky, but would you guys agree that it's a pretty good, pretty approachable crop for home gardeners?
I think garlic's pretty easy, and like you
Yeah,
said, I
yeah.
like that it's in the fall because
Mm-hmm.
even if you missed out on the spring or you're not sure what you're doing there's always like a rush in the spring to get things right. I feel like
Yeah.
things are a little bit more chill this time of year,
Hmm.
so the idea of putting in something and harvesting it in June is
I'm
simple.
always surprised
Yeah.
that there's not. I've seen plenty of garlic in home gardeners plantings, but I think that's one of the reasons that I don't see it more because so many of us are such traditional spring gardeners. We don't think about putting stuff in the fall. I sometimes wonder why I don't see more garlic in folks,
hmm
gardens, and that's one of the reasons I guess why is because it's out of the traditional spring planting window. But I see that as a benefit, not a detractor
hmm
for home gardeners. But I've had multiple garlic classes there in Bourbon County. They're always great, but people are there's always a percentage of people that are attending those programs are kind of surprised that it's put out in the fall.
hmm
And that surprises me a little bit, but
That's
I
what
guess because it's out of the traditional flow of
it's
things
like
for the
half the
spring.
season. You don't even have to worry about it. It's what
Yeah,
could you
right.
want? What's better?
Yeah, as
Right.
long as
It's
you
perfect.
and it does so well in raised beds. I love
Hmm.
and I've been putting those in fabric containers, garlic, when I first heard of fabric containers, I wanted to try it. That's an easy crop. So I stuck it in. It did fantastic. But that is one thing garlic needs to have, of course, plenty of sunlight, but also one of the most critical things is good drainage for garlic. And it even
hmm
helps if you're planting it in native soil is to mound that soil just a little bit,
Hmm.
and that's one of the common fail points for garlic is a way that a homeowner
Rots.
might fail.
Yeah.
Yes, is bulb rot, because remember you're putting it in during a time of the year where you typically have two things: more moisture and cooler temperatures. And if you don't have a very well drained soil, bulb rot is one of the most common issues that I see from home gardeners, followed by a failing to mulch, providing
Mm.
some kind of mulch on top of that to provide winter protection and temperature buffering throughout the winter time. But and if you can take care of those 2 points as a home gardener, I think you're going to ace growing garlic. Well drained, well tilled soil, well prepared soil bed, and then mulching. You're well on your way. And the third thing is realizing that it is an allium, which is an onion family, which means one thing: it's a heavy feeder. And fertilize, you probably should put down pre-plant fertilizer, followed by 2 applications in the spring. One application when the tops start to grow on garlic, and the last one in May. Do not, in Kentucky, fertilize past May, because you're going to create yourself some problems. Bulbs that are too succulent, that don't dry off well. So you're fertilizing 3 times, and as long as you take care of the mulch, the soil drainage, and the fertility, my goodness, that's just about all there is to it to have a great start to growing some good garlic.
And the best approach would be to work off of a soil test, as discussed.
As we've
In our
discussed in
previous
the past.
episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
We haven't mentioned elephant garlic. I feel like we have to throw that in there just a little bit. It's technically not garlic.
More of a leek.
It is more closely related to a leek.
I love the flavor of elephant garlic, though. I mean, I'm into that. It's milder.
Mm-hmm.
You can really taste the elephant.
Yeah, the elephant.
Extra
it's got
fonte.
the essence of the elephant. Yes. It does. I just love that mild flavor. I don't know. I kind of
if garlic can get a little spicy for you, elephant garlic can be a good way to.
The
get
cloves
similar.
are much
it's
bigger.
crazy.
Like a
thing
single
is
clove can be
softball.
as big as the whole
4 or 5
bulb.
times bigger.
Yeah.
It is crazy.
So now you are talking about planting garlic. So 2 things. One, should I just go to the grocery store, buy a clove of garlic, and then just throw it in the ground?
You can.
Question B, am I putting the whole garlic head in the ground? Should I be breaking it apart? Is it a clove by clove situation? What's the deal here?
You when planting garlic, there's a term we should differentiate here. One is bulb, which is the entire bottom portion of the garlic that's a bulb. You're not planting that, or you would just have a big mass of garlic that would all grow together in a bunch and would not do well. What you're doing is separating the outermost largest cloves of both hardneck and softneck garlic and elephant garlic. They're huge. They're easy to separate, but you're separating those outermost largest cloves because larger cloves make better garlic the following year. You're separating those and planting those, and I'll throw out some spacing here. Within the row for hardneck and softneck, that's 5 to 6 inches apart in the row of the cloves. It's a little wider for elephant garlic. You're talking 6 to 8 inches. And then as far as the distance between the rows themselves, you're talking 24 inches at least for best airflow management as far as density between the rows. So within the row, 5 to 6 inches for cloves. Pointy side up. That's important to mention that here. The pointy side of that clove needs to stay up. The flat side needs to be down. It'll get a better start that way. So 5 to 6 inches within the row, and between the rows, 24 inches. If you can maintain that spacing.
So Ray and I differ, and he's probably right, but this is just the way I've done it. I do everything intense.
I put the whole bulb. No.
I buy all the cloves that I'm going to plant, and then I eat them.
And then I eat them all, and then I throw them back up. No. So I do my spacing a lot closer, actually, than Ray does. So, maybe that means I get smaller bulbs. I don't know. But I like
spacing further apart.
Really?
So, yeah.
So for reference, I do mine about 3 inches apart, and
I do it in containers, and it seems to work pretty well. Alexis, are you doing it in a field or like in containers?
In a field setting, and then between the rows, I do 12 to 18 inches. So it's like just wide enough for me to walk through. But I think
they said they'll probably do great at that.
I think it depends on your soil as well. You know how loose your soil is.
Commercially, I think it's a bigger deal if you have acres of it. But if you don't, homeowners, I've seen homeowners just plant it within an inch of each other, and they seem to do fairly well as long as they don't absolutely stack the cloves on top of each other. It does well. It's a very flexible crop, and that's one of the reasons I love garlic. It's kind of forgiving.
Yeah.
So if you're a home, sorry.
I was just gonna say it kind of meets those things where it's like forgiving for growers. It is good for you to eat often, and it tastes good. So just go crazy.
Yeah, the history of garlic is phenomenal. I mean, yeah, we could have another whole episode on, as far as
It
the good
was
for you
it
aspect.
was found in King Tut's tomb when it was excavated. I don't know if you
Yes.
guys knew that or not, but
Hmm.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, 5 to 7. I mean, all that literature differs, but it goes back 5,000 years and 3,000 years in Chinese medicine, and then some would argue that it goes back all the way to 7,000 years, the earliest records of garlic use, because early populations recognized the antimicrobial
Mm-hmm.
aspects of garlic, and even Louis Pasteur, he recognized it when he was doing all of the work with his processes. Recognized garlic for that attribute also. So it's
Can
not
I
only tasty, but it can be good for you.
can I take a little side note here
Of
that
course.
has like nothing to do with garlic, but I'm going to connect it. But speaking of things that
Speaking of
have been around
chocolate,
a really long time, has anybody heard of bog bodies?
Yes, isn't that
yes,
like those Neanderthal dudes that they dig up?
it's well
Well, like
preserved. Are you
not
we
no, they're
talking
not
about?
always Neanderthals, but
Like
like yeah,
murdered,
like
Old
they have
dudes.
found them in the peat bogs
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah,
Europe,
yeah.
like
and they're
preserved by
so
the
yeah,
yeah.
they're so preserved
Yeah.
by the fact that there's no oxygen, which is what creates these peat bogs, right? And the acidity and the tannins and all that. They they know, like they can tell what's in their stomach that they've eaten, and so like when they died based on what vegetables are in their stomach, because what would have been in season, which is bonkers to me.
Yeah, yeah.
And then this is so cool, they know about trade because one of the guys was apparently in this, it was like I don't know, 300 BCE or something like that, and this they were using hair products at that time, and this guy had
Totally.
like a
Clay.
faux hawk situation going on,
Nice.
and was using like
Flock of seagulls.
Classic look.
material to like gel his hair up, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And that plant that created that gel, quote unquote, only grows in France and Spain, and they found him in, I think it was the Netherlands, and so like
Oh,
they
sure.
know that there was like
Rode his
trade
bike over there.
happening.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I'll relate this back to garlic, as in I wonder if there was garlic in their stomachs. Garlic is native to Greece, I believe, and obviously we know it has spread throughout Europe. So I'm curious on whether or not there was garlic in the bog bodies. If you don't know
Well,
about bog bodies,
shout out to
go
the
look
bog
them up.
bodies for eating seasonally,
Shout out,
right?
shout
I
out.
Mm-hmm.
mean, eat local.
Eat-
They were into
Beach
it
body is
before it was
out, bog
cool.
body is in.
Bog body.
I'll have to
That's why I
dye my
love
hair
hoodies.
cowboy copper or something. I'm gonna call it
Faux hawk.
bog body auburn. I think is what is my next color.
You could have a fitness company called Bog Body by Alexis.
Nice. It's going to be a hit. I can feel
Yeah,
it.
I wonder, and in that case, it would be like kind of preserved from the inside and the outside.
Yeah,
They had
yeah.
the
That's
garlic
what I
in
was
there.
wondering. Yeah, if you had a bunch of garlic, would that have better preserved the insides? I wonder.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a
It's spooky season, so I'm bringing it all around.
there's a book by a person named her. I can't remember the rest of the name, but her last name is Kimmer, and it's called Gathering Moss. And she talks about it's all about moss, and she talks about
Shout out to Moss.
all the moss in these different locations, including the moss in bogs. It is crazy. There's like certain dynamics that, because of the like remoteness and like disturbance, there's aspects of the dynamics that we don't know and almost can't really know because it requires too much disturbance to like once you disturb it, it sets the process back like 15 years or something. It's pretty wild, but yeah, it's worth a read if you're a brio guy or gal.
If
Bryophyte.
moss is your thing.
Yeah, if you're into
If
moss,
you just
and
love moss.
there's a woman who sells moss out of North Carolina called Moss and Annie.
Nice.
She is a whole vibe and a half. She is wild. Anyway, so we're putting it in the ground. I think another thing about garlic that I really like with the callback to our episode about winter cover crops is that it is a green thing that is actually growing in the winter in defiance of Jack Frost, in defiance
It laughs in the face of frost.
Yeah, and it's really cool. And and like Ray was talking about mulching, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the mulch material since that's a favorite topic around here. But I have used straw to mulch my garlic in the past because it kind of stays a little fluffier and more like fluffed up, I guess. But seeing these little green snakes of garlic leaves grow out of that through the winter and into the spring is like a pretty fun, magical little thing to experience. Yeah. Do you all have any thoughts on the mulch? How do you all have you all done it? Have you or is anyone else out there admiring their garlic in the middle of winter?
I think straw is, I mean, that's a safe bet.
Yeah.
I've seen people that use all kinds of things such as leaves. You just have to be careful with some types of mulch material to make sure that it's not inhibiting that growth, because you can get it too thick and it can mat down and cause some trouble. And it can actually retain too much moisture and that'll cause bulb rot. So I think in this case, I think straw is like the perfect
Yeah.
type of mulch.
And I usually say to
In
wait
this
until
scenario.
the ground freezes to mulch, right? What's your thought
Mhm.
process on
Yeah,
that?
that's one of those other forgiving things, but yeah, that works just great because really mulch does the way mulch works is it keeps the ground in the wintertime like uniformly frozen almost.
Mhm.
It limits the fluctuations in temperature, and that's kind of what you want.
Yeah, we wanna kinda
So
prevent that heave and
yeah,
thaw as much as
yeah,
possible.
yeah.
So that's why I said it. Although in Kentucky, I mean, we don't often get ground freeze. Well, we did get it a little earlier this year with the polar vortex at
Mhm.
Christmas, but
Oh yeah.
sometimes it's January before the ground like really freezes. So you have some leeway there, which is again nice when you've got a lot of things. You're trying to put the garden to bed, you're trying to get your cover crop down, all that jazz. Get your garlic in, and then when other things settle down, you can get some straw on it. So
Mhm.
it's nice. And I agree, Brett. Like I think that's why I really like to start some like a lot of my own seeds is because there's just something so satisfying. Like especially in the wintertime when like you make something grow. I have some foxglove and some campanula and some other stuff I seeded recently in the greenhouse. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many times I have seeded that same crop. I know when it's going to come up, and it doesn't matter. But every time it does, that first little seedling, oh my gosh, I'm like, oh, look at you. You're so
It gets a
cute.
boost. Yeah, it
Oh,
gives a boost.
I get such a like rush every single time a new little plant comes up.
It's also conceptually just a wild phenomenon. Like the idea of like seed growth, or in this case, clove turning into a bulb. So, and just to clarify, make sure one more time. So, if you're a home cook, and you've had, you break that garlic bulb that you get from the
And
grocery
the
store
cloves
into cloves. Each of those individual cloves,
can create a
when
bulb.
taken care of, will create a whole new bulb for
Mhm.
next
One
year.
pound makes about 8 pounds on average. A little bit less, a little bit more, but yeah, 1 pound to 8 pounds. That's a pretty good. That's pretty,
Investment,
phenomenal to me. Yeah.
return on
And we
investment.
were talking about, you can buy it from the grocery store, but you can also buy specific varieties
Mhm.
of seed garlic. It
Yes.
probably is a little late now to be thinking about that. A lot of them are
Mhm.
sold out typically.
Yeah, a lot of the popular
Um,
varieties they sell out very quickly, so you have to order those months in advance.
and there are, I think, variety recommendations out there for depending on where you are. You can find
Yeah.
some, but
We here at University of Kentucky have a whole publication on it.
oh, yeah. I remember when I was working at the farm more, and this ties back to my cold open for the thing about asking people what music they were listening to. Music was one of the varieties that we would always
Oh,
grow,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Good
Yeah.
segue.
I would concur. I think that, and so music is an example of a
It's a
hardneck
good standard.
variety,
Mhm.
and honestly, if you have not been around horticulture, you have probably not seen a hardneck variety before.
Mhm.
Softneck varieties,
Oh,
they're what you tend to get in the grocery store.
yeah.
The paper is a little bit more delicate, a little bit
Mhm.
easier to pull off.
Mhm.
I find generally the cloves on softneck, the grocery store style, tend to be a little smaller.
They're
Mhm.
quite a bit smaller. Yeah, bigger bulbs, but smaller cloves, and hardneck's just the opposite.
Right. And so you
Yeah.
might have like, I don't know how many it is, like 8 or 10 or 12
Mhm.
cloves in a softneck, and they're each the size of like your thumbnail, versus you might have like 5 or 6 in a hardneck variety, or maybe a few more than that, but they're like
The size of your
big,
thumb.
they're the
Yeah.
size of
They're
your
Mhm.
very
thumb.
well defined, yeah.
Yeah. And
I
and
like
and they can be potent,
yeah.
too. Let's
Mhm.
mention that.
I like the red ones. So they have
Red
like the
Mhm.
Chilium, or I'm mispronouncing
there's a
that, but
couple different ones. I forget the one. I've grown music and I think I prefer to peel a hardneck one
Yeah.
actually because the paper doesn't get like you know how garlic makes your fingers real sticky.
Mhm.
The papery doesn't get stuck because it's real thick. It's
Yeah.
more like almost
oh
more like
yeah,
a
Like
it's not
butcher
shell to
paper
not
me.
compared to
feathery.
tissue paper.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's almost more like a shell than anything. I think it's easy. It kind of comes off in one big piece. You just kind of have to get a hold of it. And yes, that I feel like recipes could be specific when they say 2 cloves of garlic. It could be like 2 cloves of soft garlic or
Yeah.
2 cloves of hard,
Yeah,
because like hard neck garlic
big
again is
difference.
often more intense. You're gonna get like a
Mm.
spicier flavor, I
Yeah,
guess
Yeah.
is a way to put it.
I've heard it also called sharp. But
Sharp.
yeah.
I made oh I'll just say this first. I made tabbouleh the other night, like
Mm.
Mediterranean parsley salad, and I put so much garlic in it, and I did like
Yes.
raw garlic,
Mm.
and I didn't realize until we sat down to eat, and I ate it, and I was like, "Why is this spicy? I didn't put anything
This is so
spicy in this."
spicy.
The garlic, the amount of garlic
Why
in
is it
it made
spicy?
this. Yeah, exactly. And then our guest from last week, poor Emily, had to ride all the way to Louisville with me the next day, but she said she was
You were
gracious
Nice.
about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Bless her.
emanating
You're
it.
sweating out garlic,
Yeah.
essential oil.
Yeah, so the hardneck I think is the ones that I've had more experience growing. But Ray, you were saying earlier, I think, or maybe it was before, but about the like how long it lasts once you
Yeah,
try it,
soft
and
neck
maybe we could talk a little bit about
is
the curing thing.
yeah, soft neck, it just lasts kind of twice as long. It's got a much longer shelf life
Mm-hmm.
than hard neck. I mean, it all is both hard and soft necks, very good keepers. But on the low end, you're talking about 4 or 5 months for hard neck, and then on the upper end of soft, it's 6 to 8 months. So
Wow.
it does keep a little longer. But the indicators for maturity are about the same. I mean, bulb
Mm-hmm.
formation begins, mid to late June with summer solstice. It switches over from top growth to bulb growth. And then once, I don't know, I always base it on at least half the upper leaves are starting to brown out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Once I reach about half, depending on what the weather is, I'm good. I mean, 2/3 are fine. 75% of the leaves being brown are fine. But once it reaches half of the leaves turning brown, I start to think about harvesting the garlic.
And
And like what?
if you've never grown it before, it looks like a giant green onion.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it
Mhm.
As
does
far as
exactly.
and so those tips that are up and out, once those about half of those have gone kind of that yellow brown
Yeah, and you have to
faded.
look towards the base. That's not as real evident unless you're just paying a lot of attention to the garlic. So look towards the base of the garlic to find those wrapper leaves.
Mhm.
The brown kind of papery feathery leaves, you
Mhm.
can once you start to see those around the base, that's a good indication it's reaching maturity.
I love plants that just kind of tell you when they're ready. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
Mhm.
have to
great.
go through, you don't have to be like, oh, you don't have to search as hard. It's just kind of like you visually look over it. It's like peace lilies, like you know when to water them. They tell you. And I love things that communicate with me in that
They
way.
communicate
Mhm.
well, they really
Mhm.
do, yeah.
Mhm.
Garlic's one of those
They're pretty
crops.
much just screaming at me about what they
Yeah.
want.
I just want
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah, and so soft neck is those are the ones you're going to see braided as well. So if you're
Mhm.
Yeah,
into selling, if you're going to sell these or you
beautiful
want to,
braids.
do something nice for in your kitchen or something like that, if you want to do those braids, I have grown soft neck garlic before and incorporated dried flowers into mine, and you can sell it during winter time because that's when, it still keeps, if you want to, or for fall festivals, that kind of stuff. So you'll want to do soft neck. Although I have braided hard neck
Me too.
garlic, I,
Yeah.
I feel like it's
Same.
not as pretty. But if you are inserting like herb bundles or anything like that into it, like dried sage, dried rosemary, you can do that. You can fill in kind of those gaps, and nobody knows the difference. It is easier and more attractive, I think, to do the soft neck.
Once you guys go through the curing process, which is minimum 2 weeks for me, about 4 weeks, much
Explain the
better.
curing process.
Curing process is just once you get it out of the ground, first of all, do not wash it. That's another common
Yeah.
mistake I see is don't wash it. I've seen commercial producers, they'll strip the outside leaves to get a nice clean bulb, and then they'll bundle it in bunches of however big the bunches are.
Mhm.
But for most homeowners, you just pull it out of the ground, get rid of all the excess dirt,
I
and you don't wash it.
a
That's the
couple
main
a
thing.
couple of tips just on getting it out of the ground in the first place. So
Yeah.
one would
Good
be
point.
if you can try to harvest it when it has been dry. The
Mm-hmm.
drier it has been, the less moisture is going to be in those outside wrappers, the better shot
Yeah.
you're going to have. And also the
It
soil
does
will
keep
probably
better.
crumble away
Yeah.
easier to
Yeah.
harvest it. The other is, for me personally, I found that the more that I can get like a shovel or fork or whatever under it to break it
broad
up,
fork.
the less. Now you don't. I do every year have a couple that I put the shovel through the side of the bulb, and
It's classic. It's my
yeah.
first move
But
in
in
ag.
general,
so
if you can
fresh.
loosen it up so that it comes out of the soil really
Yes.
easily, it doesn't create those little tiny fissures and fractures as much that can
Keeps
allow
much
rot to
better.
get
Yeah,
in.
it's a good point, Brett.
But yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's an important point, especially when you consider, using a broad fork or some kind of wide fork or shovel. Even you're taking this stuff out of the ground in Kentucky when the soil is typically can be very hard, very dry. So you physically cannot pull that out of the ground, and you would not want to try. If there's that much resistance, go ahead and, as Brett's saying, use something to kind of help you lift that out of the soil, let the soil crumble away, and take that from there. Yeah, that's a great point, Brett. Absolutely.
And so
And once again,
you
you
see,
get it out.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead. I was just going to say, then go through the 2 to 4 weeks drying process. You hang that up somewheres with most of the soil knocked loose. But after you go through well, I say drying process. Technically, I guess it's the curing process. But once you guys get to that point, you guys remove the tops. I've seen it both ways: the braid left intact, and then some people cut 2 to 4 inches above the bulb. How do you guys like dry that, or how have you done it personally?
I think hard neck usually I'd cut it off,
Yeah,
but depending on how much I've got or what I'm going to do
yeah.
with it.
So when you
Yeah.
hang it up, you keep it all intact. You keep
Yes, you keep everything
keep
intact,
the
and
fine roots that are on the bottom, keep those
yeah,
on. The stuff that's up top, keep all of
yeah.
that on.
Now I've seen people, they will take the roots off the bottom. I personally leave those on when I've grown this, the crops personally for myself, just, personal production, not commercial production, is I just hang it up. And sometimes I'll have little strings kind of wired up, and then I'll put the garlic upside down and drop them down in where the bulb's kind of held by the string in open air somewheres in a shed or under an eave, and let them dry that way for 4 weeks. And then after 4 weeks, I considered them cured, and then I remove the tops. Sometimes I'll leave a little bit of the stem on there, a little bit of the leaf structure, 2 to 4 inches, and then I get it ready for storage. And the main thing about storage is one thing to me, and I made this mistake before, and it was my mistake. I should have known better. Is do not store them where there's sunlight, direct light, because they will try to grow again. You want to store them in the dark. If you're getting real picky, 70% humidity in a cool, dry location is perfect, away from any kind of sunlight. If you want to get that long-term storage, 6 to 8 months, is keep them out of the sun. When you already have them cured and you're getting ready to store them, keep them away from the sun, not in the refrigerator.
Are those similar storage conditions to any other crops?
A lot of different crops, like vegetables. I mean, if you're talking about like other root crops, sweet potatoes, potatoes are kind of like that as well, as far as keeping things. So root cellars,
Yeah,
basically,
that's what I was.
where you would store onions is where you would store garlic, and all your root crops. Yeah, Brett.
And
It's a
I was
common
just thinking,
storage
if
form.
I would probably hesitate to set up a whole area with a little bit of humidity control for just some garlic. But if I
Yeah,
had some other stuff
yeah,
too,
that's a good
it's
point.
just
Yeah,
a thing to kind of think about, is that long-term, non-refrigerated storage
hmm
stuff is a huge part of our horticultural culture and legacy and everything else that we
yeah,
just don't
yeah.
really we don't really deal with it as much as we did in the
No,
Right.
past.
now we have all these preservation
Everything's
tactics
on
and
demand.
technologies. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it used to be root cellars were just an incredibly important part of homesteads.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Really, really important. And I remember grandmother having those. My grandmother was a lady that had never had electricity, would not have it in her home. So
Mm.
she had a huge root cellar, and I would go in there and just smell all the earthy smells, just like almost year round. I mean, there was
Mhm.
times when that thing would empty out before the crops would come in. There was a month or two, but for the most part, she was very, very good at making the most of crops that were harvested there on acreage that she had up a far, far up a hollow in eastern
Mm.
Kentucky.
A
And
hollow.
those are.
Did you just say
Ray, do
hollow?
not cleanse yourself for this modern
Did
world.
I euthanize that a little
You
bit?
did.
Holler.
Yeah,
It's
You
thank
all
said
right,
you.
man. It's
hollow.
all
I was like,
right.
what
Yeah,
is
don't
that?
Yes, it
ever.
was a holler, and it is to this day a holler, and there's still nothing around this holler for miles around. So I looked at it on Sat Map the other day just for nostalgia.
This
Four or five
unlocked a
hundred beautiful
memory for
acres.
me, like
Oh man.
talking about like the curing process. So
Mhm.
I used to spend summers with an aunt and uncle up in Pennsylvania, and they were
Northern
like,
Appalachia.
Yeah, I mean, they were like literally on a reclaimed mine, kind of situation.
Nice.
That's where my mom's side of the family grew up. So my mom is not the Italian one; she's she's the Appalachian one.
What's the last name?
McGraw.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
That Ulster Scott.
Yeah, everybody's knowing all about me and my names now.
Now it all
They can
makes
answer
sense.
all the questions
The
for
Italians and the
she.
Perfect.
But I used to spend, and they didn't have kids, and I'd spend the summer with them. And my uncle grew tons of garlic, and they had this shed that he would hang it in, and it was just strings and strings of garlic hung up. And
question: did he have beans in there too? Shucky beans or leather breeches?
I don't remember.
Shucky
I
beans.
remember the garlic
Nice.
just because it takes up so much room. Like it's a very big visual
it
thing,
does take a bunch of room, yeah.
But I remember they would when you're 10, they can pay you $1 and you'll clean up all the garlic. And I remember he'd, have me knocking the soil off. And when it was cured, taking off those outer really dirty wrappers, just a couple of them and leaving them in there. And then they had a root cellar. But yeah, it like really unlocked a memory for me of just like sitting there at the stump right outside the shed and just kind of peeling off with my tiny little fingers. And man, I made like $5 that summer and it was the best summer ever.
Rich. Yeah.
I was
rich.
rich.
Buy so many Slurpees.
Back then it might have. That's been a couple years ago.
And on the curing is very intensely garlic smelling.
Yes.
So we sit in the garage in our garage, have a couple of nails we put up in the rafter or in the joist to hang them from, and the whole garage smells like garlic like the whole time it's curing.
Yeah.
Like really intense. But
I always like that smell, but it can get rather intense.
Yeah. What other like places did you all do? Do you all do your garlic curing now or have in the past?
Just under the eave of a porch or someplace good, dry and hot under a tin roof, preferably if you have that. That was a traditional spot that you just hang it under like a porch roof away from rain.
If you really want to confuse somebody, you can like hang it in like a little closet and they'll be like, why does everything smell like garlic? Like everyone's confused.
Everybody smells like garlic. Everything smells like
winter
garlic.
clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
Just whatever you're popping on your outer layer.
It's fine. Honestly, I'm good with smelling like garlic. Could be worse.
It could be much worse.
Well, I had a question to kind of clarify part of the process. So you leave the roots on for the curing. When it comes to storage, do you cut the roots off before then, or do you leave them on and only
either way? I've not seen a huge difference. I've seen
a lot of times
out of the field, I've taken scissors and trimmed them off right out of the dirt. And then cured it. I've done it both ways, and I didn't see a huge, as long as I don't nick the bulb or get too close to the base of that bulb.
Sure.
I've not seen it have a huge impact either way.
I think what we're getting at here is garlic is easy, and there's it's not one of those things that like if you mess up one part or you do it a little bit out of order, it's gonna make a big deal. As long as you're kind of following those first 3 things that Ray talked about, which is making sure you've got good drainage, making sure you're planting, at the right time, and that you're not going to over fertilize, or essentially, as long as you don't fertilize after May, you really can't go wrong. I don't want to jinx you or anything, but that's the key of it.
Maybe I just like garlic so much, but the payoff is so great compared to
it is.
Like to have
and
fresh
it's relatively
garlic,
insect free and disease free. There are a few, like onion maggots and a few other botrytis and a few other diseases, but for the most part, it's pretty pest free.
It's good in your rotation too. So they said it's an onion family, Liliaceae, and so that's not, that's a good thing to rotate with your tomatoes and your peppers and your, all those other crops, because it is in the different family. And, of course you've heard the episode about crop rotation. So I don't need to re-explain that, but it's something
because they listen. They've heard
totally listened. It's something that you can
incorporate,
need to circle
back to that one.
Easily, if you're looking for something else, and with it being winter, looking for something else to put in there.
Yeah, I think that the only technical part really is the storage stuff. Like that's where it can get a little more challenging, or you have to kind of figure out your system. But the growing,
if you have an unheated, uncooled garage, just put it in there. That's going to be the closest approximation of a root cellar for most people. If it's an attached garage, it's going to be somewhat buffered. You don't want to get it too extremely cold. But yeah, that's probably the closest place you're going to have if it's unheated, uncooled. But if you've got that, then you've got it.
All right, well, I'm going to end on a controversial note.
Oh man,
I'm a lightning rod for controversy.
Oh yes.
No.
Yeah, well, then you don't know me at all.
Here it comes. Here it comes.
He lives for the controversy, people.
What about garlic?
Is that like jean
Never
shorts
say
with garlic
that
in
to
the
me
pocket?
again.
The minced garlic that comes in the jar or the tube,
I like it.
minced, etc. Is it a no-go? Is it
I
a
like it.
necessary evil? Do you have a passion for it? How do you feel?
It's functional. It's not fun, but it's functional. That's my take on it.
It
That's
has
my
a
hot take.
place.
It
Just
depends
not in
how
my
much
house.
garlic I need.
Yeah.
I think I had convinced myself that it was as good.
Oh, it's not.
There is a huge difference, a bigger difference than I had allowed myself to believe prior.
Right.
And I don't even
I like
just
the
mean
milder
local.
garlic. Maybe that's why I tolerate it. Is I like it milder,
Yeah,
like the
you
elephant
go.
garlic.
There it
I know,
is.
Him and
that's
his
I never
soft
thought about
necks,
that, Brett. That's
Yeah,
that's a
totally.
great question because I didn't think about it. Maybe that's why I do like the in oil minced garlic because it is kind of milder. It doesn't have the knock that the harsher garlic.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe I never thought about that.
I think it too. Like it just comes back to something that I want to emphasize over and over again through this podcast. And I think we have is in the same way that like it's very hip to like be anti-lawn or anti-turf or whatever. Like there's a place for that, and like if that gives you joy, then go for it. And I think it's the same way where it's like it's kind of, and granted, I speak for myself to say that I really do like it, but it is hip to like the really spicy, strong tasting.
It's
garlic.
like the IPA.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. That's what I was thinking.
And there is nothing wrong with a nice
There's a little bit wrong with
nice
it. That's
American macro brew
Cerveza.
pilsner. Yeah, just and so the same
Is
way with
jar
garlic.
like the Bud Light of the garlic world?
It's the Michelob Ultra.
It's the Michelob Ultra.
I like
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mick Ultra.
I was gonna go like Mick Ultra PBR, maybe something.
Yeah, so I
Garlic
have used it, but I definitely have gotten back into using fresh garlic and fresh ginger, particularly in making cuisines that rely on those. And
nice.
Oh,
dang,
yeah.
it is.
Add a little soy sauce, bango, you're like already there.
Bang.
The awesome thing is at our farmers markets, there's several like farmers that grow garlic pretty consistently, and that's awesome to have that as a choice. If you love the fresh stuff, even if you don't want to grow it on your own, visit your local farmers market and ask around to see who's growing garlic. I think you might be surprised in your local community, even though you may not be aware of anyone growing it now. If you ask around, you're probably going to find someone that has some garlic that may be for sale. So
and it lasts a long time, so you can buy it now and earlier, and then if you really like it and you can plant it yourself in October right now. Grow the garlic. Go do
plant
it. Grow
garlic.
it.
As soon as this episode ends, dig a hole. Put garlic cloves in it.
It does well in pots, like Ray said too. So you don't have a ton of space.
Great.
Like
I love it.
You can do it in pots, and it's easy.
So
and that
easy.
one you can just pull out by hand if you're doing it in a
you
pot.
Do.
In a
You don't have
bed,
to dig or anything. Just make sure to mulch a pot because the temperature fluctuations can be magnified in containers. But leaves or some straw, that's a small area. Like Alexa said, in small areas like that, you can plant the bulbs. I put them like 2 or 3 inches apart and they still do fine. In pots. But yeah, that's one of my new favorite ways to grow those.
Big reward.
Oh yeah. Good stuff, folks. Garlic, it's just so easy. And the classes have been popular. So I know we have more people locally, at least in my county, growing garlic. They have sent me pictures. So
putting the yum in Allium.
Oh, nice.
Oh, he was been really thinking on that one.
Yeah. I think it just came naturally. I don't think he even had to think about it. Nope. I think it was just there.
I don't believe it.
The idea had to cure a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
The humidity
didn't take 2 to 4 weeks either. Didn't take 4 weeks for that to pop out.
It does smell like garlic in here though now.
Yeah. It's got a pungent aroma.
I like seep garlic for days afterwards. Yeah. Like, is that like everybody else, or is that just
it's cool. It like keeps bugs away and people away.
My mom used to give feed the dogs garlic cloves when it was like really heavy tick season. Like, I mean, they had like tick stuff on them, but that was back in the day when stuff I feel like wasn't as good. And she'd feed them garlic cloves because garlic
And they would eat
is,
it. She's like, eat
I
your
have
garlic
heard,
clove.
aren't like alliums like
I
supposed to be like
thought so.
not cool for dogs?
Maybe she built their tolerance over time, and so they were like,
they
hooked
lived a
them
long
up.
time, so I don't
yeah,
know.
Yeah,
there you go.
I don't know.
there it is. Another old wives,
They
another
pulled up
myth
dead
dispelled.
things all the time. It's fine. Yeah, don't. We are not doctors or
Yeah.
veterinarians, so do not follow. Although I do want to try this thing I saw where people like they pour honey over like a crap ton of garlic and they let it like steep, so to speak, for a while, and then that garlic honey is supposed to be good for you. And I have no
Good things
research to
together.
back this up, but it sounds
Well,
like some
honey is one of the other
like
materials
an
found
antiseptic.
in the
Yeah,
pyramids, and it was
yeah,
functionally like it could be
sound.
eaten again. Like
Yeah,
it essentially
Ready to
has no
go.
shelf life per se.
Brett,
Yeah.
I listen focaccia, but with garlic honey.
Yeah,
I think you can you would you make that?
I can do that. Yeah,
There's a
Okay.
90s country song in there somewhere.
Can I make that request?
Yeah,
please?
of course. Focaccia,
I'm requesting.
the
I'm
garlic
requesting
honey.
publicly. So if you all don't hear me come back on the pod with a report on how delicious it was, find him
Oh,
and get him after him
yeah,
for it.
get
Okay.
me,
Yeah.
give me.
Get him.
All right, folks. Well, we will bring this all up, and we're gonna have some spooky season themed episodes coming up, so make sure you check those out. We hope that you had a great time today, and make sure if you need anything, if you've got questions, if you've got ideas for a podcast, shoot them over to us at hortculturepodcast@l.uky.edu, or you can send us a DM on Instagram, hortculturepod, and we will, by we, probably me, will respond and let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want more of. You can also leave us a review, and we're going to work on those swag bags for you guys. So leave us a review to be entered for a chance to win a swag bag. And yeah, a swag
A blag.
bag.
Just,
a bwag of swag.
just blag. Not to
Just
blag.
bragging on you.
Not
Just
to blag, but
bwagging,
we got
a
pretty
bald
good
boy
bags.
bwag.
Ooh, I like it.
All right, folks. So we hope that as we grow this podcast, you will grow with us, and we hope you join us next time. Have a great day.